Imagine sitting down to sign the biggest financial decision of your life. You're at the table, the pen's in your hand, and that's the moment when you find out the number's different than what you expected. That used to happen all the time, believe me. And it wasn't because buyers were careless. It's because the system let it happen. Before 2015, the closing process ran on two separate acts. And this rule dates back to 1968, when the Truth in Lending Act, or TILA, was enacted and subsequently RESPA. To put it simple, lenders were regulated under TILA and title companies under RESPA. Since then, there were two main documents required for disclosure in every loan. A Truth in Lending disclosure, which aimed to disclose the real cost of the loan, and the HUD-1 statement, which aimed to outline every closing cost paid. The Truth in Lending statement came from the lender with the intention of giving the buyer an opportunity to know the actual cost of the loan and shop it around. On the other hand, the HUD-1 settlement statement came from the closing agent and strictly disclosed every penny paid at closing. Different documents, different sources, and they didn't always match. But here's the part that really mattered. Both documents were often handed to buyers at the closing table. Not the night before, not 3 days before, at the table, right before signing. Think about what that means today. You're being asked to commit to a mortgage, hand over a wire transfer, and take on the largest debt of your life based on numbers you're reading for the first time in that moment. There was no time to ask questions, no time to spot errors, no time to push back if something changed. That wasn't a process built for buyers. It was a process buyers were surviving. In 2015, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB, changed everything. They realized what was wrong in the regulation and decided to enact the TRID rule, which stands for TILA and RESPA Integrated Disclosure. This new rule not only introduced mandatory time periods for disclosure and acknowledgement, but simplified the disclosures given to the borrowers with simpler forms such as the loan estimate and closing disclosure being the one we want to discuss today. One document, clear format, and most importantly, it must be delivered at least 3 business days before closing. That timing shift sounds simple. It wasn't. It fundamentally changed the power dynamic at the closing table. Now, instead of discovering your numbers at the moment you're expected to sign, you have time. You have time to review, time to compare, time to ask your lender, agent, title company, why does this number look different from what I expected? It fundamentally changed the power dynamic at the closing table. That question, why does this number look different, used to be impossible to ask. Now it's the entire point. The closing disclosure. I like to break down the closing disclosure into 3 main sections: loan terms, closing costs, and disclosures. Loan terms, this is usually your page 1. Instead of having to scramble through the entire 150-page closing package, this section goes right into business and tells you the loan amount, interest rate, whether the interest rate can change over time, or even if there is a prepayment penalty. You will also see everything in regards to monthly payments. If anything here is wrong or unexpected, stop and ask before moving on. Closing cost details you will see on pages 2 and 3. In here, every penny is accounted for in your closing. You will clearly see the concept and payee of each fee, as well as who is paying it, whether it is the borrower, seller, or any third party. In addition, and more particularly in page 3, you will also see additional credits and debits, such as prorations. In this page, you will find your total cash to close required. Additional disclosures. This is in your pages 4 and 5, and this was meant for very particular loan terms, which are not easy to find in a 150-page document. In here, you will find information such as if the loan is assumable, there is a demand feature, the loan has negative amortization, or even if the lender accepts partial payments. Page 5 even has contact information, so you could see all your professionals involved in your closing, and you have that information handy if you can't find it years after closing, along with your little table for your annual percentage rate. The closing disclosure wasn't created to add paperwork to your closing. It was created because buyers deserved better than what they were getting. More time, more clarity, more control. When you understand where it came from, you stop treating it like a form you have to sign and start treating it like a tool you can actually use. Review it before your closing. Ask questions when something doesn't match. Know your numbers before you're sitting at the table. That is not extra work. That's just what an informed buyer looks like. At Apple Tower, clarity at the closing table is what we're here for. And this is Title Talks.